What if I told you that Ferrari has had a whole time hidden in his car and that no one saw it? Until Lewis Hamilton arrived to discover it. Stay, because this is not just an improvement. It can be the script turn that the 2025 season was waiting. In a season where pressure and criticism have accompanied Lewis Hamilton since the first day, the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix represented more than a race. It was a decisive moment, an unexpected revelation that marked the beginning of a completely different narrative for Ferrari. Until that weekend in Imola, the reality for the British pilot was a constant contrast between his legend as 7-time world champion and the visible limitations of his new team. Ferrari was not even for the favorite, and the SF-25 was presented as a car full of unknowns and inconsistent performance. But something changed deeply that Sunday in the Imola circuit. Lewis Hamilton started from the 12th position, a location that would normally indicate a survival GP, even more on a track like Imola, famous for its difficulty advanced and its demanding layout. However, what we witnessed was an action marked by surgical precision, emotional control, and contained aggressiveness that only a pilot from his caliber can deploy at the right times. Hamilton not only climbed positions, he executed advances in unexpected areas, dominated the management of the tires with a strategic intelligence, and maintained a competitive and constant career rhythm at the height of the leaders. But the most revealing thing was not what he did, but how he expressed it. On the radio of the team, outside the cameras, Hamilton released a chain of thanks full of emotion, a verbal explosion that showed something that had not been seen in him: genuine happiness. He said to feel truly connected to the car, a phrase that may seem light, but that in Formula One encloses a fundamental truth. When an elite pilot uses that expression, it means that the synchrony between its handling style and the behavior of the car has reached a point of deep understanding. And that changes absolutely everything. It is no accident that his career engineer, Riccardo Adami, described that radio as one of the most explosive since Hamilton arrived in Ferrari. What they lived on the track was not a simple good performance. It was the crystallization of learning weeks, settings in their pilot style, and multiple data sessions looking to find a way to feel the car. In Imola, that process reached a new threshold. The remarkable thing is that this feeling of connection did not arise in an ideal weekend. The classification had been disappointing again. Ferrari pressure was still latent. However, in the midst of these adverse conditions, Hamilton achieved an impeccable execution in the race. That ability to find its best version under pressure, to shape an action that transforms doubts into hope, is what has defined its legacy in the F1. And in Imola, that legacy began to be written again, this time with red ink. This resurgence is not just an emotional milestone for the pilot. It represents the possible competitive renaissance of Ferrari if they know how to take advantage of this discovery. Because when a pilot like Hamilton begins to feel comfortable, the results do not take to arrive. And if the SF-25 is able to give those sensations in the race, although still faltering in classification, then we are facing a powerful tool in the hands of the most experienced pilot of the grid. Imola was not a coincidence. It was a signal. And the championship, from now on, must take it into account. What Lewis Hamilton discovered in Imola was not a mere improvement of sensations. It was the precise identification of a hidden pattern in the behavior of the Ferrari SF-25 that could completely reconfigure the way the Italian team faces the remainder of the season. This hidden advantage, which has gone unnoticed by many within the paddock and sometimes even for Maranello engineers themselves, is directly related to how the car responds in real race conditions, particularly when the tires have overcome their performance peak and the car operates in a broader thermal and aerodynamic window. For weeks, Ferrari had been focusing his work on correcting visible problems in classification: an unstable back, difficulty to properly heat the tires, and a low general confidence of the pilot to push the limit to the limit in a single round. What they had not considered at all was that these weaknesses were transformed into strengths during the prolonged development of a career. Hamilton was the first to correctly read that phenomenon, observing how the car, instead of degrading as other cars do, seemed to find a progressive balance with the passage of turns. An adaptation that can make a difference in the current F1 format, where the management of the medium and final stint usually defines the results. The key element is in the architecture of the rear suspension. Ferrari redesigned this component as part of the 677 project, seeking greater mechanical flexibility to adapt to different track profiles. However, what seemed like a strategic error in classification to generate an unpredictable rear becomes a blessing in the race, when the car enters a compression regime that stabilizes its behavior. This feature makes the SF-25 have a more linear tire where, a better distribution of aerodynamic balance, and surprising capacity to maintain rhythm in conditions where other monoplaces begin to suffer from overheating or loss of traction. It is not just a difference in adjustments. It is a dynamic phenomenon that arises when the car interacts with the race environment, fuel load, track evolution, and pilot settings through the steering wheel. In Hamilton's words, there are tons of positive aspects that are not revealed in simulations or Friday, but in the heat of the Sunday battle. His ability to perceive these nuances is what has allowed him to translate a theory into a tangible advantage. In addition, the SF-25 seems to benefit from greater resistance to lateral instability in medium and fast curves when the bottom of the car works near the limit without touching the asphalt, something that happens more frequently when the car is loaded. This explains why Hamilton managed to make overtaking in complicated areas of the Imola layout, where he normally does not risk. The car offered enough confidence to lengthen braking and sustain traction at the exit, even with used rubbers. The importance of this finding is not limited to a single track. If Ferrari manages to replicate these optimal operating conditions in circuits with similar demands such as Spain, Belgium, or Brazil, they could go from being sporadic contestants to serious threats for McLaren, Mercedes, or even Red Bull. But the key will be how they manage to integrate this new knowledge into their factory work and, especially, in their strategic approach to the weekend. Because the classification, although critical, could go to the background if Ferrari learns to exploit his career consistency to the fullest. The real question is no longer whether SF-25 can win, but if Ferrari will be able to rewrite his usual narrative of technical frustration and turn this learning into a competitive revolution. Hamilton has already made it evident. Now it's the team to act accordingly. Lewis Hamilton's finding in Imola not only represents a change in individual dynamics for the British pilot, but also raises a much more transcendental possibility for Ferrari, that of redefining his technical and competitive approach in the middle of the season. In a structure historically marked by the operational rigidity, where strategic errors and conservative decisions have even sabotaged the years of greatest potential, the fact that a pilot has identified so clearly a structural advantage in the SF-25 is an opportunity that the team cannot afford to waste. Until now, Ferrari has focused its work mainly on improving performance on a return, with the aim of ensuring favorable output positions and classification, a crucial element in circuits where to advance is a challenge. But this obsession has come to compromise other key aspects of the car. What Hamilton has demonstrated in Imola is that this approach could be invested. Ferrari has, perhaps by accident, a car naturally oriented towards the career rhythm. And if that is your competitive DNA in 2025, they must exploit it to the fullest. The tactical implications of this understanding are deep. Instead of continuing to fight for a pole that is probably out of immediate reach, Ferrari could turn to a hybrid configuration strategy. Sacrifice some classification elements such as front aerodynamic load or suspension in suspension to ensure a balanced, lasting, and aggressive car in stint long. This strategy is not only aligned with the characteristics of the SF-25, but also enhances Hamilton's driving style, a pilot who has historically known how to extract the best of the car when it matters most, during the race. But this approach cannot remain in the hands of the pilot only. Ferrari's technical structure must now adjust its post-carrier analysis process. They must redesign simulations that were previously based on wrong cases, incorporating new variables such as the behavior of the rear axle under a high fuel load, the evolution of balance with temperature in medium stint, and the efficiency of the car in high lateral requirement paths. In addition, there is a psychological dimension at stake. Ferrari needs to feed this moment as a narrative turning point. After years of internal frustrations and external criticism, having a motivated, positive, and aligned Lewis Hamilton with the car is a huge emotional asset. His comments after the race were not cold or corporate. They were grateful, enthusiastic, Italianized. This impacts not only the box, but to the entire structure of Maranello, from the simulation area to the track engineers. When a pilot of this caliber praises work and visualizes podiums, all within the team are allowed to believe. In the medium term, this discovery could even modify the car development map. If it is confirmed that the SF-25 responds better in career conditions due to its suspension design and aerodynamic balance in medium height, the team could decide to maintain this philosophy for the rest of the year, and even for the initial development of the car 2026. This is not a minor finding. It is an opportunity to redefine Ferrari's technical identity in the post-Mercedes of Hamilton. Finally, there is the impact on their rivals. McLaren, which currently leads both the Constructors' Championship and that of Pilots, bases its performance on consistency and linear aerodynamic performance. Red Bull, meanwhile, faces a stage of internal and technical instability that has weakened its domain. Mercedes is still in reconstruction phase. If Ferrari correctly takes advantage of this window, you can become the unexpected disruptor of this season. It is no longer about reaching the pointers by pure speed. It is about becoming the team that, race after race, executes with greater intelligence, solidity, and adaptation. Hamilton has turned on the spark. Now the question is whether Ferrari will be able to turn it into fire. Because the F1 does not expect. And this discovery will not last forever if it does not quickly become results. What we have just analyzed is not a simple episode more in the narrative of a Formula Season 1. It is potentially the principle of a deep transformation for a historical team that for more than a decade has lived among frustrated expectations, leadership changes, and cars that promised more than they delivered. The question that remains in the air is not rhetorical, is critical. Can Ferrari turn this advantage hidden into a real victory tool? Are we facing a genuine turning point, or will it simply be another wasted opportunity? I want to know your opinion. Not only if you think Ferrari and Hamilton are ready to make the leap, but how you think they should do it. Should they prioritize career performance in all circuits? What tactical or strategic adjustments should they implement from Monaco onwards?